Okay, you guys, let's do this. It's going to be so professional. Like, so professional. Here we go. Well, welcome to the Live Support Podcast with your hosts, Michele VanDusen and Colson, a couple of clean comedians who support each other and others through comedy's wacky and winding roads. I hope you're ready. Get set. Let's go. Since podcasts have a catchy tune, we wrote this song for Michele and June. Clean comedians are best friends too. Oh, it's so good. And you never know what they'll say or do. Here we go, sing with me on Live Support, with Michele who's really short. We'll have a ball, with June who's really tall. They have fun, interviewing comedians on Live Support, with Michele who's really short. Now it's time to start Live Support.
The Live Support Podcast is brought to you by the Hot Breath Comedy Network.
Wow, give yourself a round of applause. Welcome to the award-winning Laugh Support Podcast. I'm your host, Colson, here with Michele with the 1L, Rhonda Colson, Corey's friend.
Come on.
Shelley, or
No, don't call me Shelley. Do not call me Shelley. Come on.
Trisha's sister. Don't call her Shelley. Michele VanDusen. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So again, I got another red spot on my forehead and one down here because it's raining here, and I did the mistake of opening the door to check something on the porch before this event, before our interview, and those little mosquitoes, those little buggers have come back because it's been in the 70s like the last couple of days, or 50s or 60s, whatever. It's been warm, and so those little buggers are flying around. I'm like, ah. Yeah.
That's from mosquitoes?
Yeah. You see how quick that goes? Bam.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah. We have it like that here right now too. Like, well, last weekend, I think on Thursday, it was like 78 degrees. And then on Friday, it was like 30 degrees and spitting snow in Nashville. And then Saturday, it climbed up a little bit. I think today we're supposed to be almost 80, but then by the weekend, we get lows of the 30s again. So yeah, you know how people are like, they have their winter wardrobe and their spring or summer wardrobe. Like we just don't put anything up. But you, tell me this though, you always dress like you live in Alaska. So
I was always thinking about, I really love Hawaii, and Alaska and Hawaii are super close to each other. And that's why I dress like this. I'm very island. I'm an island girl. Actually,
I know you wear beanies. You're constantly wearing hats and big sweaters and stuff. And I thought Oklahoma was warm.
Oh, yeah, it is. But technically, it's still winter time right now. And it's one of those, you have no idea what's happening. Our floor in our entire house it's a slab floor. And then we have tile. So our house is cooler all the time. And then, anyway, but look at this, because I am an island girl and I'm a Lego girl, because I did grow up outside of Chicago, and my parents had an island in Indiana, and it was an A-frame house. Look what came in the mail. Boom, my A-frame house I'm going to get to put together. This is like living my childhood all over. I'm telling you, I'm super excited.
I remember my dad loved A-frame houses. Like when we would drive through from Indiana to Kentucky and all of that, like every time there was an A-frame house. Well, actually, no, I think that my mom thought that my dad loved A-frame houses because she would point out everyone on the route and hey, there's a an A-frame. So in my brain, hot dog always loved A-frame houses. I'm not sure. Yeah. You are the Lego queen, my friend.
Yes. And they have a little redhead girl in there. So I'm like, sweet. Like it's definitely for me. So I'm all set. I love
that you mentioned that you're an island girl, because just for our listeners, y'all, when Michele tries to relate to my childhood, she's like, sure, we owned an island, but I didn't get a horse because
my mom wouldn't haggle for $500. So I grew up thinking I was poor. Seriously. We lived in Oak Brook Terrace, not Oak Brook. Oak Brook is where all the rich people lived. We were in Oak Brook Terrace. So, obviously we're poor. And my parents made me work. My dad wanted me to be a worm farmer. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we had to do. And yeah, but apparently I
Look,
wasn't
we lived
born.
on Old Louisville Road and government housing, and my brother ate worms. So I can't relate to your childhood, Michelle. I can't relate. Okay.
Okay.
Can we talk about my outfit real quick?
Okay.
Tell the
Super
listeners,
quick.
tell them what I'm wearing right now.
Okay, you are Sparkle City today. You've got like these silver foil earrings of some sort. Oh, it's a hoodie. Oh my gosh, you look like what was that girl that just did the like Little Red Riding Hood? But what was the one that just did that Super Bowl thing that was wearing red? Like that's kind of
Rihanna? That's
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
daughter-in-law's name.
Well, yeah, but no. Yes, it is, but not the singer. Well, she is a singer. But you're a sparkle. You're a sparkly redhead. You look like Little Red Riding Hood if she wore sparkles and was glammed it all up.
Well, I'm
You're
doing
sparkle.
this
Yes.
because I think that our guest today, I wanted to sparkle for our guest because I think she's one of the most sparkly comedians out there. I think that maybe she can relate to my love affair with glitter.
Uh-huh.
And I am so excited to be able to
Yeah.
have her on the show today. So yeah, Michelle, you really went all out with your gray turtleneck. So.
Well, okay. It's like it's a tan. Okay, so I'm more like
No.
the art palette, that you put the paint on. So I'm the bland tan empty palette. So yeah,
Yes,
let's yeah.
nothing says more fun than neutral color.
Yeah,
Neutral color is
yeah,
fun. Okay,
let's introduce our
let's
guest.
introduce our
Okay,
guest.
come on, let's
Okay.
go. Okay, so our guest today is a comedian, a storyteller, an artist, an author. She has worked all across America, working in churches and clubs and corporations. Make sure you check out our dry bar special, Doodle All Day. Check out her DIY comedy special. I think is on YouTube. Get yourself a copy of her book. It's called A Spade. I think it's about farm equipment. Oh wait, no. It's a collection of hard to tell true stories. Okay, it's called A Spade. It's a hard story telling thing. And then here we go. You know what? Enough of me. Let's welcome to the Laugh Support Podcast the incredibly talented JJ Barrows. What?
That was quite the intro.
She's here. She's here. Did you see our cheering section, Michelle? Show her again.
It's her.
I thought that was Michelle. That's even more amazing. I was like, wow, how's she making that noise?
Michelle, she gets mistaken for a screaming goat quite often. You'd be surprised how that happens. All right, JJ, what do you think? What do you think about the sparkles today?
I love it, June. I love it. I love it even more that you did it for me because you knew I'd love it. I do. I love all the glitter. I love all the sparkles. And Michelle, I even love the comparison to your art palette, the turtleneck. That was that's what my husband's, he's got the gray schemes and the slate
I brought
colors.
your book.
He would say the same. Yeah. I feel very supported from all sides.
Well, I tell you, I was trying really, I'm sweating. I'm so sad this morning, JJ, because
which one's your husband?
You
This guy right
constantly are posting these amazing crowns that you make.
Uh,
And I had the beginnings of one, and I had printed out your picture, and I was going to make one to wear on my head this morning, and I couldn't find my crown. And my husband, I was running all over the house, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I need my birthday crown from when I turned 30." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I go, "It used to be in my jewelry box, and I knew exactly where it was, and I was going to put it all together this morning." And he goes, "What do you want me to do?" And I go, "Think like me. Where would June put her birthday crown from when she turned 30?" And he's like, I'm so done with you. I'm so done with you. So I didn't have laugh support from my husband this morning, but we want to talk to you about your journey in comedy and kind of back up, JJ, because the podcast is called Laugh Support. And we like to know maybe who comes to mind to you when you began comedy, who was laugh support to you.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it simple, but I do have a couple of names that come to mind because I think there's for me at least, three different types of support. So there's support in the sense of people that gave me opportunities. There's support in the sense of people who encouraged me. And then there's emotional support who like someone who was there like no matter what. And so as far as like opportunities go, three names come to mind like right off the bat is Marty Simpson, Mark Christopher Lawrence, and Brian April. These three guys just like they believed in me like from the beginning, even when I was new, and they would bring me on shows, and they would put my name in for other shows or other people if someone was looking for someone. And as y'all know, like when you're starting, it's all about getting stage time and having the opportunity to keep honing in on your material, on even just like being comfortable in front of an audience. And so I think to have so much stage time early on was a huge help to me. And I wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, maybe I could have sought it out at like, open mics or clubs or whatever, which I did from time to time. But open mics, in my opinion, are just not the best gauge of an actual audience. So to actually get to do shows, these guys just kind of always went to bat for me and gave me opportunities to perform. And so that was huge as far as support goes, because I knew they're not going to bring me on if they didn't believe in me. So that was a huge sense of support, that I got from them. And then as far as like encouragement goes, Lisa Gilbert is someone who like, I'll be like, I think I'm going to quit this month. And she's the one that's like, you're not allowed to quit, right? Like she's the one that is like, we try as often as possible to do shows together. So she's also just someone who there's a camaraderie there, as well as just an encouragement there that when I'm discouraged or whatever, I know like she's a voice that I hear that I would have to answer to if I were to quit, right? And so she's very much support in that way. And then emotional support, like someone who, when the show's over and we all go our separate ways, there's still someone that's there, like no matter how it went, that I can either celebrate with or grieve with. And it's my husband currently. He's my best friend and my closest bud, and we travel as much as possible together. But since you asked when I first started, yeah, there he is. He has a strong resemblance to Hopper from Stranger Things, which was accidentally printed on our Christmas card. Yeah, so he's definitely one. But when I first started, I was fortunate enough to have my roommate, Jenna, and she just believed in me from the beginning and went almost with every single show to me. I mean, from the time that I like started and had my first graduation showcase to open mics and she would film, she would do all the little videos. And if it was horrible, she's who we would go and sit together and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, that happened. Or if it was awesome, we'd go and celebrate. And that was also just like crucial for me to have. So I didn't feel so alone in it. And I think not feeling alone in it is what helped me continue to do it even when it got hard. And so for me, it was very much those three different types of support in the beginning that all fused together that gave me the grit that I needed to keep going. Because I think otherwise I would have been like, man, done.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do, to step out and put yourself out there. And how awesome is that right in place you have people to give you opportunities and encouragement and emotional support. And I love that you mentioned, the open mics thing. I think that a lot of comedians, when people first start, you hear that all the time, the stage time. And sometimes open mics is the only opportunity that you'll get. But I think each person, I don't know about you, but I think each person has to take their own individual path into comedy. And some people be like, if you're not doing an open mic 9 times a week, you're not a real comedian.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide who's
right
a real comedian?
Right. And I would hear that a lot, and it was really discouraging because I mean, whatever, like you said, this may be taboo, but I hate open mics. Like I hate them. And I did the, my time, so to speak. Sure, not as much as someone else who's further in would say. Maybe they would think I didn't do enough. But for me, open mics are just other comedians all testing out material. So even the ones in the audience aren't really listening, right? They're thinking about what they're going to do, or they leave when they're done. Like, it's not a good gauge of if the material is actually even good. And so I tell people now, even when they start, say, yeah, sure, go to open mic, but don't go thinking like, this is where I'm going to see if this works. Because half of the people there do not care. They're thinking about themselves. Think about before you're about to get up stage, you're thinking about what you're going to say, right? And so go and do it, but do it to say it out loud, to just get it out of your mouth and to just kind of feel it out and get comfortable, right? Just like saying it on stage, no matter how it goes. And I think maybe that's the benefit, you know, like no matter how it goes, you're building the grit for regardless of how the audience reacts, I'm just going to keep going. But as far as like, I would burn out. I wouldn't want it if comedy was just you do open mics for 10 years until the right person sees you and then you do it. I'd be like, no, thank you. I'm glad I did what I did so I can say have the experience, but it's definitely not. Nope. It's not the route. And when I realized my path doesn't have to be the same as Jerry Seinfeld or you know, whoever people want to say this is how they did it. It's like, good for them. And that's awesome that it worked. But guess what? Like, I'm not Seinfeld and I am okay with that. And my journey, therefore, is going to look different. And, you know, as long as I keep my blinders on and it's working for me, then I don't need to compare and assume I'm not doing as well just because I'm not doing it the way that they are. So I'm with you on the open mic thing.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that. Well, the first time I met you or saw you or whatever was my very first time at the CCA. And I just was studying everyone because I wasn't even doing comedy yet. And I was very like shocked that God was making me at this point in my life. He was making me go to the CCA. And I remember Lisa Mills, I listened to a talk that she gave and she said, ask me how many times I've done an open mic. Yeah. And she went like this and it was zero. It was zero. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Okay. You know, and not that it gave me permission not to be overwhelmed by that, but it was cool to see different journeys. And I remember seeing you, JJ, and Lisa and going, okay, these are women I can kind of watch and they come from different places. And it was really, really cool at the point that I was at to see people who were just nice people working hard and connecting with other people. So it's so exciting to be able to have you on the show today. But I wondered, is there ever a time on the journey where you did feel like you had no laugh support, where you were kind of in a lonely place?
Oh, yeah, I feel that way all the time. It's funny. I feel that way all the time. And even though I just like listed people, it's funny how we can know people are for us, but at the same time, we can feel so alone in our journeys. And, you know, it's the same, you know, when we see stories about people online, you know, that, you know, sorry not to go like super morbid, but when we hear stories about, especially entertainers, like that take their own lives, it's like, but so many people loved them and so many people supported them and they were such a light. It's like, that can be true. And at the same time, it can also be true that there's either this like deep loneliness or this feeling of not actually being known or a darkness or a mental health or whatever it is. Like, so I know that I do have like people who love me and who support me and they have along the way. But I would say I definitely struggle still with feeling very much alone in it and in what the journey looks like for me. Because like what we were talking about, I'm not trying to pursue comedy the way that I've seen comedy pursued in the comedy industry. Like I actually have a strong distaste for the comedy industry. I kind of don't have a desire to be a part of it. Now I happen to fall into comedy and I, you know, process that a lot. Like even whether it's like through prayer or journaling or whatever, it's like, man, God, like, I guess I'm doing comedy. Like I know it's incorporated into what I'm doing, but I'm not even necessarily trying to be some big famous comedian. And so I struggle to know sometimes what my exact path looks like. I very much love storytelling. I'm a storyteller comic, you know, I'm not the one-liner. I'm not the setup, punchline, setup. I'm not getting hard, you know, hits however often. And again, that was another thing I had to learn. Oh, okay, there's different styles. There's different genres. There's different, I don't have to do it the way that so-and-so did it, even though they killed it. They killed it because that works for them, right? And so learning that I'm, not only am I a storyteller comic, but that's okay. And my way of doing comedy is going to look different. And kind of like what you mentioned, I love doing all sorts of, I love doing art. I love writing. I love kind of fusing all of these worlds together. And I still haven't figured out yet how it all works. I mean, I still have wheels turn between whether it's like one woman show or art show mixed with comedy, mixed with storytelling, mixed with, I kind of, you know, hop all over the place. And, you know, you'll hear people say like, no, you have to figure out your niche and then super serve your niche. And it's like, again, I think that is true for some people. Absolutely. But I also think it's just as okay for the people that have desires and interests in a few things that they want to figure out how to actually fuse together and not weed one of them out. So they only have to do this one thing. And so because what I do is very much incorporates comedy, but it's not strictly comedy, I do feel alone and I feel like people don't know how to help me or what insight or even advice, you know, to give me. Not that that's anyone's fault, but it's sort of like, you know, from comedians, I'll get advice about how to be a comedian or comedy, or whether it's do more open mics or go host or go, you know, whatever it is. But I have no desire to just be a club comic. And that's no disrespect to the club comics. Like, we all have our different areas in which we thrive. But I just don't thrive in a, I can hang out there, but I have no desire to spend every single weekend twice a night, multiple times in a row in a club. Like, that would kill my soul.
JJ, I see you more like spin art, you know, where you just put the drop of color and then the thing spins and it spreads out everywhere. That's kind of how I see your gift and your creativity, because like I've watched your videos and you have, you know, you're talking, then you got some music and then you got something else happening. You throw in these one-liners from movies, and it's like, how do you do all that? And it's not like I could never reproduce that because I couldn't. But you are so unique in your artistry that it's like the canvas is never finished. You know, I love that you just continually like, oh, well, here's an open spot, let me do this, and here, and I love how you just fill in the gaps of what we typically think of entertainment or typically think of stand-up comedy, because you don't need to be at the clubs, you need to be where you're supposed to be. So whether it's out on the ocean, you know, doing a beachfront thing, or, you know, doing the corporations or the churches, you just exude joy in everything you do, and your art just it expels from you. It's a beautiful thing. And I like I gotta be honest, you do this whole Dollywood thing, like I have no idea what you're doing there, but now I'm like, oh, I like Dolly Parton now. Why? Because of you. And I know you're wearing a shirt that's got the Queen. I'm like, oh, you're wearing a yeah, but I didn't realize it was Dolly at first. I just, you know, I grew up with gamblers, so I'm thinking, oh, that's just, you know, cards. Okay, you like the Queen of Hearts, great. But now I'm like, oh, there's more detail there. Oh, there's more detail there. And so you're wearing a Dolly shirt, and I love that. So
thank you. That's encouraging.
I see you more as a spin art artist. You know, you just everywhere. So, oh, and here's my other little bit of advice. JJ, you need to come to the Christian comedy retreat this year, because it's not a place where we're going to tell you how to do comedy. It's a place where you're going to continue to connect with more comedians that are going on the same path that we are, you know, where we're all struggling with the alone but not lonely, or lonely but not alone, or, you know, it's like all that stuff that makes. And so we're just this hodgepodge of paint. And when we come together, we make a beautiful picture. And it's one of those things. It's not what you've ever seen before. So I just would encourage you, you should come and bring your husband. Oh, because he does pictures. So come on. Yeah. Okay. But there was no question in that. All right, June, ask another question.
I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love everything that you're saying, JJ, because I feel like I definitely relate, and I can get like the analysis paralysis when someone says, well, you have to choose. It's Neapolitan, it's chocolate, vanilla, and I'm like, I'm a Baskin Robbins baby. My brain is everywhere doing everything. Yeah. And so, you know, the next question that we ask people is, and I will tell you that right now, just hearing you talk has definitely been a laugh support to me. But have you had an opportunity to be someone that supported another comedian or helped them on their journey in comedy?
I mean, I hope so. I would say not consistently, but I whether that's I give off the wrong vibe or whether it's that I think people sometimes think, oh, I don't want to bother you. So sometimes when people do contact me, they're like, oh, I don't want to bother you, but can you, whatever, can we talk about, or can I ask you about? And anytime someone reaches out about that, like, I'm 100% game. I'm like, I literally, a girl contacted me on Instagram last week, and we talked yesterday because she signed up for her first ever stand-up class. It starts in 2 weeks, and she just found out that they were going to have to do a showcase at the end of the class, and she didn't know that, so she tried to drop out, but it was non-refundable. So she was panicking, and she was like, can you give me advice? Like, what do I do? And so we got to talk yesterday, and I just like got to share, from experience, and just what insight I do have as far as like, the first thing you need to know is like, you already belong. Like, you already belong there. You're going to show up feeling like you have to prove that you belong. You have to make sure everyone thinks you're funny and da-da-da. You need to know that everyone is in the same boat. Like, in a class, at least, you're all showing up for stand-up class or whatever. Like, everyone is nervous. Everyone is uncertain. Everyone is, everyone, whether they're the funny person in the other group or what, like, we all walk in with our own stuff. And so you're not alone in how you feel. It's totally valid to be, nervous, anxious, whatever, but like, try to start from a place of knowing that like, you're already enough, you already belong. Like, pressure's off. And guess what? This is a class, so you have nothing to prove as far as like being funny. And maybe you don't feel like right now you could do a 3 to 5 minute stand-up bit. You know what? You're right. You probably couldn't right now, but that's what the class is. You're going to spend 7 weeks working on it. And I guarantee you by the end of the 7 weeks, you'll have something to say. And so instead of worrying about right now, oh my gosh, 7 weeks down the road, I have to perform, just take it one day to just do the material. And then, as it gets closer, you spend more time preparing. And I guarantee you by the time it comes to do it, you'll be able to do it. So it's like stuff like that where I feel like the support that I give is more like one-offs. Like, people are like, hey, can I ask you about this? Or, another person is trying to decide between improv and stand-up, and, or, whatever, or being a female in the industry. And I'm always, an open book as far as like, if people, want insight or advice. And I'll be the first to say, like, I might not give you the advice that, one is supposed to give, or the advice you want to hear, but I can give you insight based on, what I've been through so far. And feel free to ask around and get other insight and glean and what works for you and what doesn't. Because, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, if we're all just like wired differently and different ways of comedy work for us, then it might be to your benefit to ask a few different people, kind of play around with the insight that they give, not take it as like, they said this, and so this is the golden truth, but just take it as, oh, you know what? Treat it like a cafeteria. Like, I like this, I'm going to leave that one there. I like this, I'm going to leave that one there. And if you want to forge your own path, then that's, how I would suggest doing it. But again, that's going to be different than someone that is dead set on, I want to be a club comic. I want to go on, TV and have a sitcom and da-da-da-da. Who knows? Like, I don't know. I feel like I've benefited from having someone consistently pour into me, but then I also like find myself trying to do exactly the way that they're saying to do it, as opposed to learning to like think and process for myself what works. And so I'm kind of in a season of life right now where myself as well, I ask around. I think I want to get to the point where I would like maybe more of a mentor, like a mentor. I don't feel like I'm in a place to be a mentor just because I'm still kind of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But if people want to ask, or they have, questions or insight or email, I mean, I warn people too. It's like, you ask me all the questions you want, but just so you know, I'll answer and you will get a novel. And and most people can't even keep up, to like reply. It's like, because some people think like, especially with comedy, they think you're just getting on stage and telling you about what happened that day or something. And then how do you make that funny? It's like, no, it's like work. It's like, it is so much work. And that's why even when I first took my first class, it started with 15 people. And by the end of the 6 weeks, we had 6 people, because most people didn't realize how much work they would have to do during the week. They thought they could show up once a week, get on stage and say some stuff, and then over time it would get better. And they're like, man, I have a job. I don't have time to like write about my childhood.
I
So
love that. I love that your friend, because that's what we do. I think a lot of people do that in comedy classes. They walk in with this anxiety, this performance anxiety, and I think if I took a cooking class, if I was taking a baking class, I wouldn't go in going, I need to be able to do a 4-tier wedding cake,
yeah,
right away, so I can impress everyone in my cooking class. Like I
yeah,
go in knowing I don't know how to bake. And,
yeah,
but in comedy, we do have that performance anxiety that we're going to
yeah,
be seen by other people. I love that you said insight versus advice.
Yeah.
yeah,
Hearing different people's insight, that is huge because I think, especially when you're in a vulnerable position, when you're starting out, you can take what people say as concrete. Michelle and I have talked before that, I always respect veterans who give me their advice,
yeah,
but I've noticed sometimes, like certain bits I write or certain people I put in front of, I'll find that, oh, JJ loves that because it sounds like JJ's voice, what I just did. Or,
yeah,
Billy loves this bit that I'm doing
right,
because that sounds like it's one
Mm.
liners and that's how he does it. So finding your own path and
yeah,
getting insight from people, but not taking every piece of advice that you get
right,
as the gospel truth. This is how it has to be done, can
right,
free
Yeah.
people up to figure
very
out
much.
their own path. But that being said, one of our questions is though, has there been a piece of advice that someone's given you that it is kind of a solid thing where you go, yeah, I've learned that is truth for me, and you carry it through?
Yeah. So when I first started, my comedy teacher, Tony Calabrese, he right off the bat, he told me, "You got something, kid." Like he believed in me like day one of the class, and he said, "But just so you know, you need to be okay being a big fish in a small pond before you go be a small fish in a big pond." And I was like, "Can you unpack that for me? I've heard it, but like, how does it apply
Yeah.
here?" And because I started in San Diego, I started doing stand up in San Diego, and as we know, LA is the mecca, is one of the meccas. LA, New York, whatever, is going to be the place that's where people go, like when they start comedy. And so a lot of people, when they start or they get into entertainment, they think, okay, I got to go to the hub, I got to go to the mothership, I got to go to the place where it's all happening. And the thing is because that's what everybody is thinking, it's very oversaturated. It's
Mhm.
tons of people. It's everyone and their mom fighting to be put in a lottery to maybe get a couple of minutes of stage time at an open mic. So like the likelihood that you actually get to practice on stage is very slim. Yet you get to say, I'm an LA comic. And so he said,
Wow.
you're going to hear from people that you need to go to LA because, and people that don't do comedy, they'll say the same thing. Oh, do you work in LA? It's like such a, right? It has like its own association with it as if that's the place to be. And he said, people are going to tell you that you need to go to LA, but here's the thing. You stay here in San Diego. It's not as big. There's not as many clubs, but we've got 8 clubs and not as many comedians, and they have stages that they need to fill with time. And you will get way more stage time in this small pond and become a much bigger fish, so that when it is time for you to go to the place and be in front of the right people, you will be way more prepared to like be at your absolute best than the person that's only gotten a couple minutes here and a couple minutes there, but have lived in that place the whole entire time. And that was huge for me, because the tendency is, right, even if we find out what we love or what we want to do, the tendency is to be like, okay, this is what I do now, like, got to go do it. And we kind of like what you said, if we start the baking class or whatever, and we think, I got to be able to do this right away, like the tendency is just to rush. And especially for me, like I definitely struggle with perfectionism, people pleasing. I mean, you mix all the things and I'm like, I have got to get it right, and I've got to get it right now. And it
Yeah.
was very freeing for me to just be okay being a beginner and use that time to actually like work on it and get better at it in a safe space or whatever you want to call it, that allowed me the stage time to develop the style that I have. Because if I had started, I mean, pretty much right away, and this, again, this is not everyone's journey. Everyone's journey is totally different. So I don't
Mhm.
say this so that someone can compare, but I was very fortunate when I started that, I started doing 5 minutes stage time right off the bat, like act like I had my graduation showcase. I happened to be in front of someone that, performed at the Comedy Store. They asked me to come be an opener. And then from there on, it was literally just at a minimum 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, like very early on. And you'll hear people that'll say, no, you're not ready to do. And I would hear it all the time. She's not ready, from whether it's, the veterans that have been doing it for 20 years and they're just upset that they didn't start, whatever. We're all human. We compare ourselves for different reasons. But I did well enough to keep doing it in San Diego, right? And so eventually I got to the point where I ventured further out and I got to do more places and more stage time. But getting permission to just stay put and allow myself to grow was very freeing, because we live in a very instant world, right? And it's like, once you figure out the thing, you got to do it and you got to keep up. And then all we do is compare. And so they do this much stage time, or they're in LA, or they have this many followers, But like, just hearing him say that, like, be okay being a big fish in a small pond. Allow yourself to grow, before you go venture out into the bigger pond. And it was very freeing for me. And it allowed me to see it all as practice. Oh, I'm not going to go be the best comedian on the stage. I'm going to go practice. I am going to go see what works and what doesn't. And it allowed me to approach it with like curiosity instead of pressure. And it just allowed me to show up a little bit more as me than I think I would have been more prone to, like, I got to prove, that I belong. And it really allowed me to enjoy the process a lot more than I think I would have had I thought I got to prove that I belong here. Because no one, that's an uncomfortable feeling, right? Like, no matter who you are.
Absolutely. Michele, was that you?
No.
The fire truck.
I love fire trucks. Speaking of fire trucks, I get to make a fire truck delivery with my husband this afternoon. So that's super fun.
Awesome.
Oh, I should wear this on the delivery.
You need to wear that.
You need to, yeah.
I'm gonna wear my sparkle. Well, I love the idea of allowing yourself to practice. Rick Roberts,
so
which I
good.
know he's mentioned all the time on this podcast, but Rick was the one who I learned writing and things like that from, and he equated it to being a science experiment. That every time you went on stage, you're doing a science experiment. You're seeing what worked here, and then maybe you got to change the formula a little bit and switch things around, and so that kind of makes me think of that as the science experiment, the practice. We're just we're doing it to the best of our ability, but not to be broken every time something didn't work out, because it is a different formula, like a science experiment. If you're changing variables in it, you're going to get different results every single time. So I love giving yourself the freedom to practice. Now, Michele, you in the background.
Yeah.
First of all, it's fine that JJ didn't send me a Christmas card that you keep showing to everyone.
I need your address.
It was offered. It was offered to everyone. You should be following her. And if you want a Christmas card,
then that's what I got to do is follow.
And you could see who's the guy. Yeah.
And
David
Harper.
So I'm just
Hopper
saying,
from Stranger Things. Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty awesome. I feel like I do follow JJ. Like when JJ,
you gotta know
I remember. Story. I remember seeing the bus. I remember hearing the story of you met him in the airport, correct?
My husband, yes.
Yeah,
no,
so I went out there
at the airport, but
how you looked at your wedding and your gown and this beautiful, I'm a huge stalker of JJ. I just missed the opportunity for the Christmas card. Okay, enough about the Christmas card. What do you have that's even more something we want to spotlight? We have a book here. Michele, tell us about what you're holding.
It's called A Spade, and it is a collection of hard to tell true stories that JJ has gone through, not me. So it's really, really well written. So I do believe you, JJ, when you said, if you sent me an email, I'll send you back a book. That's pretty much what I believe it. It's kind of like when I would send my husband a question, he would send back pages of stuff too. It's really, really good. And it's JJ, you tell us about it.
Yeah, so I think what a lot of people don't know is like comedy comes from like really dark places often, but my style as a storyteller, a huge life lesson for me was I I had to deal with my pain before I could actually laugh about it. I think that's why people get so offended. It is, it's just, if you haven't dealt with your stuff, like, it's way easier to be offended by someone living in freedom and joking about it and then taking it personally, right? As opposed to if you've dealt with it and you're functioning from a place of freedom, you can laugh because you're like, oh man, I know how that is,
Yes.
And so part of me even being able to enter into doing comedy was I went through, different multiple seasons of life, as we all do, that were really, really tough. And especially growing up in the church, I didn't know for a long time that I could talk about what was really tough. I kind of thought, you have to put on the smile and everything's fine. And I call it the Christian F word. I'm fine. And and so the book is a collection of stories in which I'm learning to process out loud what's actually really hard in life. And it's not I've given up. It's just sort of like, I'm saying the things I didn't know that I was allowed to say. I'm sharing the stories I didn't know I was allowed to share, and finding that life can be both hard and beautiful at the same time. Like, it can be, it can suck and God can be good at the same time. Like, they don't cancel each other out. And so, yeah, for me, it's just it's not, I always tell people, I'm like, if you're looking for like a really funny book, this is probably not your book. But if you, are looking for more of like, maybe like a sad journal with some light at the end of the tunnel, this might be it.
I really enjoyed the lunch lady story. Yeah. It's just, there's just so many neat things inside here that as you read it, you can identify with, and then to see how you journey through it. And you're like, oh, so there is a way out. So it's yes, it may not be, knee slapping funny, but
Right.
it does end up bringing you to a light and to a place of joy or peace. So I highly recommend this, because some people have a hard time. I have always been having a hard time with this particular thing in my own life, is calling something what it is. So I love the fact that you're like, it's called a spade, call a spade kind of a thing. And if you can't recognize the problem, or if you don't want to name it, if you don't want to face it, then you can't get your healing from it. And so that's why I love how you the way you tell your stories, and how it's so good. Just buy the book, and you can buy the book on Amazon, right? You just got to look up JJ. I'm going to actually run your stuff through the bottom here.
There we go. I love that. I love that, JJ. A lot of my comedy comes from growing up in low-income housing and government housing with a daddy named Hot Dog. And I do jokes about our power being shut off in June because he was saving money for illegal explosives in July to light up the trailer park. So sometimes I get the look from the audience that's like, oh, she was poor. Like, we're all right, folks. We're all doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, everybody calm down. So,
yeah. I'm wearing a sparkly hoodie. I am doing fine.
And I had an island.
Sparkle. We sparkle now. Hey, guys, for sure, I want you guys to make sure that you check out JJ Barrows. It's jjbarrows.com, JJ Barrows on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and at JJ Barrows Art on Etsy. She is an amazing artist, so you got to check that out. And of course, we want you guys to go on Amazon and buy the book, people. Buy the book. It's called A Spade by JJ Barrows. Y'all, this has been an absolutely I'm just so blessed by this interview today, JJ. We're so happy that you agreed to join us. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I loved it. Thanks for letting me share, and I loved it. It's some fun to be a part of it. So Michele, fun to have some laughs for it.
There you go.
That's right.
There you go. Well, Michelle's going to kick you backstage for just a minute, and then we'll give you a proper goodbye, and we're going to close this thing out real quick.
Yeah, and you can eat all the green room snacks back there. So
that's every episode. That's the same joke every episode. There you go, Michele.
Well,
oh my gosh, what an amazing episode!
So good. So good. I love JJ.
For a second.
What?
Did it leave you speechless for a second? Okay, and I don't know that we fully described JJ's t-shirt. So she was wearing a Dolly Parton t-shirt.
Yeah.
You have to check out her Facebook and Instagram and all of that stuff, because she is doing some amazing stuff with Dolly Parton fans, and yeah, so you got to dive in deeper to that. But she had on a T-shirt that was the Queen of Hearts that had Dolly Parton on it. My 19-year-old son rocks a Dolly T-shirt all the time.
What?
She is oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, he likes thrift shopping and cool T-shirts, and he wears Dolly like it's Dolly from the 80s. Maybe he wears that T-shirt all the time. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I just know the 9 to 5 song and then that Islands in the Stream. Like
I
that's it.
watched 9 to
So
5 the other day. I don't know where I was at. We're at the hotel. My husband and I were trying to go out to dinner, and I started watching 9 to 5, and I was like, yeah, no, we can't leave. Like, I have to watch the end of this. It's one of the best movies of all time. But anyway, listen, y'all, if you enjoy Laugh Support and you liked listening to us, well, even better, you can watch us. You can see my sparkly T-shirt and Michelle's turtleneck and JJ's super cool Dolly Parton T-shirt by watching us on the Creative Motion Network. We're on Roku TV, and you can see us on Vimeo. And if you're watching us and you want to listen to us on the road, well, you can find us on pretty much any platform that you listen to podcasts: Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, all of those things. But listen, before you go, please, please, please go on our Facebook and our Instagram, like and follow the Laugh Support Podcast. Let us know who you are and where you're listening. So that's going to be it for this episode of the Laugh Support Podcast. As I always say, Jesus and Junebug loves you, and I'm going to pre-apologize for Michelle's dad joke of the day.
All right, so I want to say thanks for listening. Here we go. Walnuts are hard to crack open because it can take several minutes. What?
Oh, that's the
yeah.
word.
You
It's
heard
the
it. You heard
word.
it.
Bye,
All right,
y'all.
guys, thanks for listening. Catch you next time. Whoa, whoa.